Hello and welcome. My name is Charlie Page. I'll be here reading as you rest and maybe even drift to sleep. We're so grateful to have you here for our first ever series, 88 Kinds of Non-Human Intelligence to Fall Asleep To. With our collaborators, Kinthread and Winler, Katie and I asked a simple question. What might humankind need to be reminded of right now? What wisdom still whispers through the more than human world that is worth listening to, learning with, and remembering? The answers came in the form of 88 pulses of quiet wisdom, from tide pools and mycelium, migrating birds and glowing worms. Quiet intelligences, still at work, even when no one is watching. We've got plenty of ideas for upcoming series, and we'd love to learn with you too. You're always welcome to drop a comment with feedback or ideas. When you're comfortable, I'll get started. There's no need to listen too closely. There's plenty to learn, but these stories are here to keep you company as you gently drift. If you're ready, let's begin. Pulse 1, mycorrhizal networks. Beneath your feet, forests are whispering. Not with sound, but with thread. Mycorrhizal fungi create sprawling underground networks that connect trees, not metaphorically, but physically. Through these filaments, known as hyphae, signals and nutrients pass between species. A pine may share sugar with a maple. An aging mother tree may funnel life to a sapling she's never seen. These fungi don't have brains, but they make decisions. They regulate flow, redirect when damaged, and prioritize kin. They respond to threats, drought, and even the scent that beetles emit when chewing leaves. They form agreements, carbon traded for phosphorus. They remember drought years, altering their behavior the next season. And in their quiet architecture, they offer a different kind of intelligence than we are used to recognizing in our own human kin. It isn't fast, it isn't flashy, it is relational, flowing in webbed systems. It's slow, vast, and mostly invisible. To understand fungal wisdom, you have to think like a forest, distributed, interconnected, patient. Here the mind is not an object, it's a verb. The intelligence isn't in a skull, it's in the web. Pulse 2. Slime molds. Slime molds are neither plant, nor animal, nor fungus. They are amoebas, single-celled, brainless and jelly-coloured, and they are astonishing. When placed in a maze, they explore all paths at once. When they find food, they retract the dead ends and leave only the shortest route behind. They don't have neurons, but they process information. They don't have memory, but they remember. A slime mold exposed to a chemical that it dislikes will begin to avoid it, even days later after the chemical is gone. It adjusts its movement, avoids threats, finds efficiency. Some scientists call this embodied computation. Others see it as a kind of intelligence before thought. If you cut a slime mold into pieces, it will reunite. If you split it and give the parts the same task, they'll learn separately, then sync up. It moves in waves, it breathes through contraction. It's not trying to be clever, but it is. It may not be thinking the way that we think, but it is sensing and adjusting and living. And when you sleep, you're not so different. A body moving through dark places, seeking what nourishes you. A slow logic, a soft pulse, slime wisdom. Pulse 3, octopuses. The octopus is one of evolution's most brilliant detours. It has 3 hearts, blue blood, arms that think for themselves. Roughly 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its limbs. Each arm can feel, taste, and act semi-independently, exploring its environment like an intelligent creature all its own. Together they form a being that learns fast, escapes easily, and adapts endlessly. Octopuses have been seen unscrewing jars, solving puzzles, sneaking out of tanks to raid neighbouring aquariums. They camouflage instantly, changing colour, texture, and shape to match their surroundings. In captivity, they recognise individual humans. In the wild, they've been observed playing, tossing objects back and forth, riding currents just for fun. Their brains evolved not from social bonds like ours, but from solitude, survival, and sensory complexity. They are the closest thing we have to an alien mind on Earth. And yet when you meet one, eye to eye, it feels familiar. Not because they're like us, but because something in them is fully present. They are not our opposite, they are our parallel. Another experiment in consciousness. A mind made of muscle, water, colour, and ink. Pulse 4. Crows. Crows are creatures of shadow and shimmer. They belong to the corvid family, alongside ravens, jays, magpies, and they are wildly, eerily smart. They recognise human faces and remember them for years. They hold grudges. They pass on warnings. A person who harms a crow may find themselves watched, followed, cawed at for generations. In urban settings, crows have been seen placing nuts in traffic for cars to crack, then waiting for red lights to collect the snack safely. They make tools, hooks, spears, bent wires shaped to retrieve food. And when they teach their young, they don't just model behaviour, they transmit tradition. Crows have cultures. They have regional dialects, generational intelligence. They've been observed gathering quietly around the dead, holding silent collective vigils. They test limits, they play. And sometimes, if you feed a crow regularly, it will begin to leave gifts, buttons, beads, polished stones, not because it's trained, because it chooses, it remembers. A crow is not just a bird, it's a storyteller, a watcher, a node in a long line of knowing. If one lands near you tomorrow, don't rush. Wait, it may be watching you back. Pulse 5. Dolphins. Dolphins live in a world of sound. Their sonar is so precise, they can see inside one another. They name themselves with signature whistles. They call to each other across vast stretches of ocean. And what's more, other dolphins respond to those names. They recognise reflections, pass the mirror test, and mourn their dead. They've been known to collaborate with fishermen, herding fish into nets, then eating the leftovers as payment. They teach their young to use tools, sea sponges to protect their noses, while foraging along the seafloor. And when a dolphin is injured, others will help it breathe by holding it at the surface. They show signs of self-awareness, empathy, and even humour. Some researchers believe they understand grammar and syntax. Others say they have second-order consciousness, an awareness of awareness. What is clear is this: they are social, strategic, and soulful. They dream. They improvise. And sometimes, when you're lucky, they'll swim beside you, not because they have to, but because they want to. Intelligence is not a ladder, it's a reef, and dolphins are its laughing architects. Pulse 6. Elephants. Elephants remember. They remember old watering holes, paths that haven't been walked in decades, and they remember each other. When two herds meet after years apart, there are greetings, rumbles, gentle touches of trunks, a recognition that runs deeper than scent. They grieve. They mourn their dead, returning to bones, touching them with care. They've been seen standing vigil, silent and still. They comfort one another in distress, placing their trunks over shoulders or resting against each other in a slow, grounding way. Elephants teach their young which plants heal, and which to avoid. They pass on knowledge through matriarchs, leaders chosen not by dominance, but by memory. In the wild, their decisions shape entire landscapes. They know when the rains will come. They feel seismic tremors through their feet. And when they move, it is with purpose. When they pause, it is with depth. Their intelligence is slow and embodied, a kind of wisdom you can feel just by watching them breathe. If you ever stand beside an elephant, you may not understand it, but some part of you will know this is a mind worth listening to. Pulse 7. Termites. Termites are architects of breath. They build mounds taller than a human, with internal climates that stay steady across seasons. Inside, air circulates in perfect balance. Hot rising, cool sinking, carbon dioxide vented out in invisible waves. They don't plan it, they build it together. Each termite follows simple rules. Carry, pack, dig, respond to scent. No leader, no blueprint. And yet, the structure they create rivals any human-made ventilation system. They're tiny, blind, and countless. But collectively, they solve problems we still struggle to replicate. If a wall collapses, they rebuild. If airflow changes, they adjust. Their intelligence is not individual, it's emergent. It lives in a swarm, a kind of living computation made of millions of bodies moving as one. To understand termite intelligence, you have to stop looking at a single insect. You have to look at the mound, at the home, at the system, and then you'll see it, not planning, not thinking, but becoming. Pulse 8. Cephalopod skin. Some minds don't live inside brains, some live in skin. Cephalopods, like cuttlefish, squid, and octopuses, don't just change colour. They become entire environments. Their skin contains chromatophores, tiny sacs of pigment, controlled by a symphony of nerves and muscles. With these, they can flash, shimmer, and ripple. They can become rocks, coral, kelp, or sand. A language without words, a mood expressed through light. Some researchers believe their skin is capable of sensing light directly, even without input from their eyes. Meaning, their body sees with them. They think in a way through texture and colour, through surface and pulse. When a cuttlefish sleeps, it sometimes shifts colour rapidly, cycling through patterns like a dream made visible. No one knows what they're seeing, or remembering, or becoming, but somewhere in those layers there's a kind of consciousness that doesn't translate, and maybe it doesn't need to, because not all intelligence speaks our language. Some of it swims, flashes, hides, and dreams in ink. Pulse 9. Bees. Bees dance to speak. When a scout bee finds nectar, she returns to the hive and performs a waggle dance, spinning in a figure 8, wiggling her body at just the right angle. The direction of the dance tells others where to fly. The length of the wiggle says how far. And the vigour? That's how good the flowers are. It's not just communication, it's consensus. Bees vote, argue, and come to agreement before moving the hive. They learn from each other. They recognise patterns. And they understand zero, an abstract concept even some primates struggle with. When building their hive, they create perfect hexagons, maximising storage with minimal effort. They regulate temperature with wing beats. They defend the whole, not the self. Each bee is tiny, but the hive is vast, and the hive thinks. It adapts. It remembers. You don't need a brain to have wisdom. You just need a rhythm, a reason, and a dance that means something. Pulse 10. Coral reefs. Coral reefs are cities made of kin. Each coral is a colony, thousands of tiny animals called polyps living together, building limestone homes with their bodies. They don't move, but they grow. They build layer upon layer, year after year, creating vast underwater metropolises. Within them, thousands of species live and feed and hide. Fish clean each other in coral alleyways. Shrimp farm their own food, octopuses nest in coral towers. And the coral itself survives through partnership, hosting tiny algae that photosynthesize inside their tissues. They share sugars, nutrients, energy, but when the water gets too warm, the algae leave. The coral turns pale, and then it begins to fade, and eventually, life stops. This is not just beauty, it's balance. Coral teaches us about interdependence. That survival is not a solo act. That architecture can be soft, slow and alive, and that the most vibrant places are built through millions of tiny, quiet acts. To dream like coral, you must learn to stay, to root, to offer shelter, even as the tides change. Pulse 11. Wolves. Wolves teach each other how to be wolves. They're born with instincts, yes, but what they know is passed down. How to hunt in formation, when to rest, how to care for pups not your own. They play not just for fun, but to learn boundaries and trust. In the wild, packs function like extended families, structured, protective, and wise. The alpha isn't a tyrant, she's often the mother. She leads by experience, not force. Wolves communicate through howls, body posture, scent, gaze. A sideways glance might mean, not now. A raised tail might settle a dispute. Their territory is not just land, it's memory. A wolf knows where the snow melts first, where the elk passed last spring, where to return when everything else feels lost. Their intelligence is tuned to pattern, place, and one another. And their greatest strength isn't their teeth, it's the pack. Together, they become more than survival. They become song. A chorus in the dark, a map in motion. Pulse 12. Pigeons. Pigeons get underestimated. Because we see them in cities pecking at chips, we forget what they are. Navigators, memory holders, precision flyers. Pigeons can find their way home from hundreds of miles away, even when taken somewhere they've never been. They use landmarks, magnetics, even smell. They recognize human faces. They can be trained to detect cancer cells better than some lab tests. And in wartime, they saved lives, delivering messages when all other communications failed. Cher Ami, a pigeon in World War I, carried a vital message through gunfire and returned with a shattered leg, a wounded eye, and still got the note through. She was awarded a medal, but even without medals, pigeons are remarkable. They learn. They distinguish art styles. They hold images in long-term memory. They form monogamous bonds, and when one is lost, the other mourns. So next time you see one blinking in the sun, look again. There is history in that chest. There is home in those wings. Pulse 13. Spiders. Spiders weave intelligence into air. Their silk is stronger than steel by weight, and spun from within. But the web is more than a trap. It's a listening device. Each strand vibrates at a different frequency. When prey touches it, the spider knows size, direction, even type of insect, just by the hum. They tune the web like an instrument. Some build elaborate spiral geometries, others construct horizontal sheets, funnel traps, or trapdoors. They adapt architecture to wind, prey, and season, and some don't spin at all. They leap, they mimic, they hunt with patience and precision. A spider thinks through tension and thread. They hold presence through stillness. And when their web is destroyed, they rebuild. Not identical, but better. You don't have to love spiders, but you might learn from them. They remind us that knowledge can be suspended, that attention hums in quiet threads, and that sometimes the most enduring intelligence is barely visible at all. Pulse 14. Parrots. Parrots are mirrors with wings. They mimic our words, yes, but they do more than echo. They learn context, tone, emotion. Some parrots have hundreds of words and use them to label objects, people, feelings. Alex, a famous African grey, knew colours, numbers, shapes. When asked, "What colour is the key?" he'd answer correctly, "Green." But more than that, when he was tired, he'd say, "I want to go back." When left alone too long, he'd ask, "Come here." And his last recorded words were simply, "You be good." Parrots are social, deeply bonded to their flocks. In captivity, their intelligence can turn to grief. In the wild, they learn local dialects. They drum, they dance, they teach each other new tricks. And when one calls out from a treetop, others answer. This is not just noise or expression, but memory carried on wind. They are not human minds in bird bodies. They are their own kind of knowing. Feathered, playful, precise. And when they speak, don't just listen for your words, listen for their own. Pulse 15. Ants. Ants operate like a bloodstream. They move nutrients, signals, building materials. One ant is simple, but together they form a thinking body. They build bridges out of their own bodies, living chains to help each other cross. They farm. They herd aphids like cattle. They wage wars. They bury their dead. And they calculate optimal paths, solving problems that seem far beyond their scale. Their colonies can number in the millions. And still, no one is in charge. Their decisions arise from contact, scent trails, vibration. If food is found, the trail is reinforced. If danger appears, they scatter, then regroup. Ant intelligence is emergent, not in the ant, in the colony. A mind made of motion and repetition. Not fast, but resilient. They adapt to floods, poison, fire. They begin again. To be like ants is not to be small. It's to be exact, to follow what works, to move together, and to know, deep in your body, that you are not alone. Pulse 16. Whales. Whales sing across oceans. Blue whales, humpbacks, bowheads, and more, each species with its own song. Some last 20 minutes, others stretch for hours. They echo across thousands of miles, and they change over time. Humpback whales revise their songs each season, passing new phrases from pod to pod, until the entire ocean shifts in unison. A kind of culture, afloat in salt and sound. They recognize one another. They grieve. They rest with one eye open, half their brains still alert, floating in vastness. Some dive deeper than any mammal has gone. Others guide their young through migratory paths carved by memory. And the rhythm of their lives is glacial, measured in decades, not days. When a whale breaches, it's not random. It's play, or signal, or perhaps just joy. Their intelligence is not always visible, but it is felt, in the water, in the bones, in the silence after their song fades. To listen to whales is to be reminded. The world is older than we remember, and full of voices we haven't yet learned to hear. Pulse 17. Bowerbirds. Bowerbirds are artists. The male builds a bower, not a nest, but a stage. He decorates it with flowers, feathers, stones, berries. Blue is often preferred. If he finds a blue straw or bottle cap, he may place it carefully, beside a pale shell, creating contrast and symmetry. This is not instinct alone. It's design. Each bower is unique, aesthetic, purposeful. The female visits, inspects, observes. She doesn't choose based on aggression or dominance. She chooses based on taste, the arrangement, the effort, the vibe. Bowerbirds don't sing the most beautiful songs. They don't fly the highest, but they create tiny installations in the forest, colour-coded love letters, and through their courtship rituals, they teach us something essential, that beauty is intelligence, that choosing, arranging, harmonizing, these are acts of thought, and that sometimes what you make is who you are. Pulse 18. Prairie dogs. Prairie dogs are chatty. Their high-pitched chirps may sound simple, but they're astonishingly complex. Researchers have discovered that prairie dogs can describe predators in detail. Tall human in blue shirt, walking quickly from the east. They have distinct calls for coyotes, hawks, snakes, and for the direction the threat is coming from. They live in underground cities with chambers for sleeping, nurseries, and even designated bathrooms. And they greet each other with what looks like a kiss, touching teeth in recognition. Their societies are structured. They collaborate. And when a young prairie dog leaves its family group, it often struggles to survive, not from predators, but from lack of community. They teach us that language doesn't have to sound like ours. That intelligence can dig tunnels, raise families, and warn others in a chirp. Their minds are not trying to reach us, but they reach each other. And that's enough. It's always been enough. Pulse 19. Ravens. Ravens solve puzzles for fun. They plan ahead. They hide food and trick others by pretending to hide it in one place, only to stash it elsewhere. They hold grudges. They remember who helped and who betrayed them. And they've been seen playing games with wolves, teasing them, luring them toward carcasses, and then joining in the feast. Some fly upside down just because they can. In mythology, ravens are messengers, tricksters, creators. But in biology, they are tool users, tacticians, and strategists. They mourn. They pair for life. They communicate with over 30 different calls, each nuanced, each specific. They are scavengers, yes, but they are also sentinels, watchers on the wind. They thrive in harsh places, and they see more than they show. To befriend a raven is a rare thing, but if you do, it might bring you gifts, or warnings, or simply the quiet dignity of being seen by something ancient and sharp. Not tame, but true. Pulse 20. Orangutans. Orangutans live slow. They move through the forest canopy with careful grace, bending branches beneath their weight. Each step measured, each choice deliberate. They stay with their mothers longer than any other land mammal, up to 8 years. Learning how to find fruit, how to build nests, how to live. They use leaves as umbrellas, sticks as tools. They teach their young without words, through demonstration, repetition, affection. Their pace is not lazy, it's intentional. In Borneo and Sumatra, each group of orangutans has its own culture. Different foraging styles, different gestures, even different sounds. They don't dominate, they don't rush. They know the forest by feel, but they're disappearing fast. Their wisdom may vanish before we fully understand it. But still, every time one stops to look at us calmly from a canopy branch, there is an invitation to slow down, to learn by watching, to move with care, and to remember gently that intelligence is not just what we do, it's how we are. Pulse 21. Mimic octopuses. The mimic octopus is a master of disguise. Found in Indonesian waters, it doesn't just blend in, it becomes other creatures. It can stretch its arms and flatten its body to imitate a flatfish, or ripple along the sea floor like a lionfish, or coil into the venomous shape of a sea snake. Scientists believe it selects which mimic to use based on its surroundings, choosing predators that its own predators avoid, which means it observes, it decides, it adapts, not randomly, intelligently. Its skin, like other cephalopods, can flash and ripple with colour, but this one adds performance. It learns by watching and survives by pretending. It doesn't lie to be cruel, it lies to stay alive, and in doing so, it teaches us something strange and true, that sometimes intelligence is not in what you are, but in what you can become, a shapeshifter, slipping between selves without ever losing the thread of its own. Pulse 22. Lichen. The intelligence of lichen is defined by relationship. It's what happens when a fungus and an alga, or sometimes a cyanobacterium, decide to live together. The fungus builds structure, gathering moisture and minerals. The alga or cyanobacterium performs photosynthesis, creating food. Together, they become something new. A composite organism, a partnership. Lichen can live for thousands of years. They survive in the Arctic, on bare rock, even in outer space. They grow slowly, millimeters per year, mapping time in quiet persistence. They break down stone into soil. They are the first life to return after volcanic eruption. And they thrive not because one dominates, but because each offers what the other lacks. There's no single lichen brain, but there is wisdom in the bond. To understand lichen is to understand symbiosis. That survival can be mutual, that intelligence can be shared, and that sometimes what endures is what grows together. Pulse 23. Fireflies. Fireflies speak in light. Each summer evening, they rise like tiny lanterns, blinking, pulsing, glowing in patterns that signal identity and desire. Each species has its own rhythm. Some blink fast, some slow, some rise in spirals or float in soft arcs above the grass. In certain places, like the forests of Tennessee or the mangroves of Southeast Asia, fireflies synchronize, thousands flashing at once, not chaos but chorus. Scientists still don't fully understand how they do it. But we know this: they are not responding to a leader. They're responding to each other. Tiny signals, tuned until resonance emerges. A shared rhythm born from listening. Fireflies remind us light can be language, timing can be intelligence, and beauty, the true emergent beauty of synchronistic intelligence, can be a kind of collective knowing. Pulse 24. Jellyfish. Jellyfish have no brain, no central nervous system, no heart, and yet they move with grace, hunt with precision, and glow with bioluminescent light. Their bodies are made mostly of water, gelatinous bells pulsing through the sea. They respond to current, to temperature, to the touch of prey. Some are the size of a grain of sand. Others, like the lion's mane jellyfish, stretch longer than a blue whale. And some never die. The Turritopsis dorni, often called the immortal jellyfish, can revert its cells to an earlier stage of life, starting over, again and again, a kind of biological reincarnation. They do not think, but they respond, they survive, they shine. Their intelligence is not cognitive, it is cellular, and ancient, older than bones, older than flight. They are memory without mind, form without fixity, and they've been drifting through oceans for over 500 million years. Pulse 25. Feral children. Not all non-human intelligence comes from animals. Sometimes it comes from humans raised without us. Feral children, those who grow up without social contact, teach us something eerie and humbling. Without language, without mirrors, without the feedback of culture, something else emerges. Some bond with animals, some learn to hunt, to hide, to survive in the wild. They may mimic the movements or calls of the creatures who raised them. They may never speak, even when taught, and their eyes often carry something vast and unreachable, not lesser, just untranslatable. We do not romanticize their stories. There is often loss, trauma, silence, but still, their lives crack open our assumptions. We assume that mind equals words. We assume that self equals society. We imagine that human equals one thing only. They are not animals, but they're not entirely like us either. And in that space between, we glimpse something strange and true. That intelligence is not just what's taught, it's also what survives when no one is there to teach us. Pulse 26. Weather systems. Weather systems think in pressure. They form from temperature gradients, moisture, rotation. They have no center, but they organize. A thunderstorm is not a single event, it's a chain reaction, a heat engine, a pulsing engine of air and water. A hurricane has no brain, but it spirals like one, coordinated, dynamic, seeking equilibrium. Jet streams shift, ripple, adjust course. Clouds form memory traces of the landscape, and each gust of wind carries information about what just happened and what's coming next. Meteorologists don't predict the weather with certainty. They model it, they listen to it carefully, because weather is not random, it's responsive, it's distributed intelligence written in heat and vapor. You can't talk to a storm, but you can learn to read it. And you can learn too that intelligence doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it arrives in thunder, sometimes in stillness before the rain. Pulse 27. Sea turtles. Sea turtles remember the beach where they were born. Decades later, they return across thousands of ocean miles to lay their eggs in the same sand. How they navigate remains partly mysterious. They may use Earth's magnetic fields, the scent of currents, or the angle of moonlight. But somehow they know. They dig. They bury their eggs, and they vanish again, slipping into the dark. Their lives are long and quiet. They eat jellyfish. They drift with currents. They cross entire oceans without a single map. They survive fishing nets, plastic, warming seas, and still they come back to the same stretch of sand, to the echo of a place they barely knew, memory in the body, direction without instruction, a knowing that isn't taught, only carried. Sea turtles remind us you can be slow and still be wise, and that sometimes going home isn't a decision, it's a return written in your bones. Pulse 28. Bioluminescent algae. In some coastal waters, The ocean glows when touched. As you move, sparkles of blue light swirl around your feet. That glow comes from tiny beings, bioluminescent dinoflagellates, a kind of plankton. When disturbed by waves, a paddle, a swimmer, they emit light. Not heat, not sound, just shimmer. It's a defense mechanism, a flash to startle predators. Or perhaps to attract something even larger to come deal with the threat. Each cell, on its own, is minuscule, but together they create living constellations. Beaches that sparkle under your footsteps, waves that look like galaxies. It's not thought, but it is timing. It's not a message, but it is communication. And standing in the dark with the water glowing around you, you remember something simple and profound. Even the smallest beings can light up the world, and even a defense can become a kind of beauty. Pulse 29. Beavers. Beavers are engineers. They cut down trees not randomly, but strategically. They build dams that change entire landscapes, creating wetlands, slowing erosion, filtering water. Their dams are not accidents, they're responsive. They adapt to water flow, material availability, and weather. When a leak forms, they patch it. When predators approach, they slap their tails on the water to warn others. Beavers don't just live in the world, they reshape it. Their ponds support frogs, fish, herons, moose. Their work becomes habitat, their design becomes sanctuary. And their motivation? Shelter, safety, a place for young to grow. They are not flashy, but they are powerful. And they remind us that intelligence is not just survival, it's stewardship. It's architecture with a heart. A blueprint written in bark, mud and care. Pulse 30. Axolotls. Axolotls are the eternal juveniles of the animal world. Unlike most amphibians, they never undergo full metamorphosis. They stay underwater, keep their gills, retain their soft-fringed, curious faces. They grow, but they don't grow up. And yet they heal. They can regrow limbs, organs, even parts of their brain. Scientists have studied them for decades, trying to unlock the secrets of regeneration. But the axolotl doesn't rush to explain. It just does. In the wild, it's critically endangered, found only in the ancient lake beds beneath Mexico City. But in captivity, it thrives, gentle, observant, still. It reminds us that transformation doesn't have to mean leaving childhood behind. That evolution isn't always linear, and that intelligence may not always be forward-looking. Sometimes it's about staying. Reduced in number, yes, but receptive, capable of beginning again. Pulse 31. Termite mushrooms. In the forests of Africa and Asia, towering mounds rise from the earth, homes built by termites. But inside some of these colonies, something else is growing. Fungus. Specifically, termitomyces, giant mushrooms cultivated by the termites themselves. They bring it leaves, feed it, live alongside it, and in return, the fungus breaks down tough plant fibers into digestible nutrients. A perfect closed loop. Termites grow the fungus feeds the termites, and both thrive. They've co-evolved for over 30 million years. Not as predator and prey, but as partners. The termites even build special chambers to manage heat and humidity, like farmers tending a greenhouse. It's agriculture, but not human. Intelligence, in this case, is not about individual cognition. It's about mutual benefit, environmental engineering. and a kind of wisdom we rarely notice, how to grow something that feeds the whole. Pulse 32. Leaf cutter ants. Leaf cutter ants don't eat leaves. They cut them, carry them, and stack them in underground chambers. They feed the leaves they have stored to the fungus, and that is what they eat. They are farmers cultivating a single fungal strain for millions of years. They manage the humidity. They remove contaminants. If a mold threatens the crop, they deploy a special antibiotic secreted by bacteria living on their bodies. They're pharmacists, agriculturalists, ecologists. Each colony has a caste system. Workers, soldiers, foragers, queens. Not hierarchical, but functional. They coordinate through touch, scent, vibration. They solve logistical problems that rival our own supply chains, all without speech, without leaders, and without forgetting the core lesson. They do not eat the leaf. They build a world with it, and in that world, something else grows. Pulse 33. Peacocks. A peacock's tail makes no sense until you look closely. It's heavy, unwieldy. It slows him down, but it dazzles. It signals health, survival, extravagance. A quiet brag that says, I made it through, even with all this. Each eye spot is a masterpiece of light interference. Not pigment, structure. The colours shimmer because of how the feathers bend light. And when a female watches, she's not just seeing colour. She's reading vibration, rhythm, the elegance of effort. Biologists once scoffed, how could such a thing evolve? Now we understand beauty is signal, a kind of fitness too complex to fake. And sometimes the tail is the intelligence, the knowing of what draws the eye, what lasts, what dazzles without apology. Not utility, but glory. Pulse 34. Glass frogs. Glass frogs sleep on leaves with their organs on full display. Their skin is translucent, so thin you can see their hearts beating. Their bones, their guts, they become nearly invisible in dappled light. Predators pass by, never noticing. Some species even shift their blood flow while resting, pulling red cells into the liver so their skin looks clearer. They edit their own visibility. They know when to be seen and when to vanish. Glass frogs raise their young with care. Males guard the eggs, fan them to keep fungus away. Some even stay through storms, clutching the leaves. They're delicate, but fierce. Their intelligence is quiet, biological, camouflage not just as hiding, but as presence shaped by place. To survive by transparency is to trust that the world can hold what's soft. Pulse 35. Prairie strips. In some parts of the world, farmers are planting narrow strips of native prairie in the middle of corn and soybean fields. Why? Because a 10% strip of prairie can reduce soil erosion by 90%. It slows water, filters runoff, brings back pollinators, and welcomes birds, butterflies, and bees into the monoculture. It's called a prairie strip, and it's not just conservation, it's integration. An intelligence that says, let the wild back in just a little. It doesn't reduce yield, it increases resilience, and it reteaches the land to breathe. The idea didn't come from machines, it came from watching how ecosystems work, how prairies hold water and knit roots and feed more than one species at a time. Prairie strips are not old or new. They are wisdom reintroduced, memory replanted, and proof that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stop pretending you're smarter than the field. Pulse 36. Venus flytraps. The Venus flytrap waits. Each trap, a pair of lobed leaves, sits open, lined with tiny hairs. When touched once, nothing happens. A second touch within 20 seconds? Snap. The trap closes, not from muscle, but from a shift in water pressure, hydraulics, and memory. If nothing struggles, it opens again. But if the prey wriggles, digestive enzymes begin to flow. This is not reaction, it's choice. A plant that waits for confirmation. A plant that remembers. And what's more, fly traps only grow in specific soils, nutrient poor, low in nitrogen. They adapted not from greed but from need, and in doing so became something else. Something between plant and animal, still and sudden, gentle and ruthless. They teach us you can be rooted and still precise, still discerning, still utterly, impossibly alive. Pulse 37. Weaver birds. Weaver birds don't just build nests, they braid them, blade by blade, grass by grass, twisted and looped into hanging orbs that sway from trees. Each species has its own style. Some spiral inward, some form long tunnels, some build cooperative cities of nests, all stitched together. The male weaver bird gathers, loops, pulls, tests, and if a female doesn't like the result, she'll tear it down, and he'll try again, not random, repetition, refinement, aesthetic negotiation, as survival strategy. Weaver birds remind us that architecture isn't only for shelter, it's for connection, it's language in structure, and sometimes love is the most intricate building of all. Pulse 38. Mangroves. Mangroves grow where most trees cannot. In saltwater, in shifting tides, in unstable sediment. They don't fight the ocean, they root into it. Their tangled roots hold soil in place, buffering coasts from erosion. They create nurseries for fish, crabs, and coral. They filter water, capture carbon, and breathe through specialized pores raised above the waterline. They are the beauty of adaptation made visible, storm-ready, half-drowned, but fully alive. They thrive in edges, in betweens, and remind us that resilience is not about standing tall. It's about learning how to sway, how to anchor even in salt and storm, and how to build a world from the mud up. Pulse 39. Tardigrades. Tardigrades are near microscopic creatures, often called water bears. They have 8 legs, squishy bodies, and an almost cartoonish appearance. But don't let that fool you. They are among the most resilient beings on Earth. They've survived boiling, freezing, radiation, the vacuum of space. When threatened, they dry themselves out, curl into a tight ball and wait, sometimes for years. And when the right conditions return, they rehydrate, uncurl, continue. Their survival doesn't come from power. It comes from pause, from patience, from knowing when to withdraw and when to bloom again. They teach us that rest is not failure. Stillness is not the end. Sometimes the wisest thing a body can do is wait. Pulse 40. Cranes. Cranes migrate thousands of miles each year, over deserts, oceans, mountains. They fly in formation, rotating the lead to conserve energy. One bird cuts the air, the others follow. Then they switch, and switch again. A rhythm of effort and rest, shared across wings. Cranes mate for life. They dance, head tossed, wings spread, legs kicking. Not just for mating, but for joy. They have been symbols of longevity, peace, and beautiful, aching soul journeys in cultures across time. And when they cry out with a long, wild echoing, you feel it in your ribs, a call that sounds like memory. They know how to move as many. They know how to hold each other in the air. And they remind us, you do not have to lead the whole way. Let others take the front. You'll have your turn again. And still, together, you'll make it home. Pulse 41, Cutthroat Trout. In cold mountain streams braided with meltwater and thyme, cutthroat trout move like shadows, glimpsed more than seen. They are born in gravel beds the size of a cupped palm, and somehow, years later, they return to that same small patch. No map, no guide, only the water. They read it like scripture, its temperature, its chemical memory, the magnetic pull of the earth itself. Salmonids, like cutthroats, imprint on the unique mineral scent of their natal stream in early life, encoding it in their olfactory memory. Years later, they follow that same scent signature home, migrating over hundreds of miles with astonishing precision. They leap against the current, fling themselves upstream not for conquest, but for continuity, to lay their eggs in the same cradle that once held them. And when drought comes, they retreat to the coldest pockets of water, slowing their hearts, waiting out the dry. Some streams vanish entirely, but the trout remember. Their lives are shaped not by dominance, but by return, not by novelty, but fidelity. And in this fidelity, this exquisite devotion to place, they carry the intelligence of persistence, of knowing where you began and swimming back to it against all odds. Because sometimes remembering is the wildest act of all. Pulse 42, Baobab Trees. Baobabs do not grow quickly. They thicken. They widen. Known as the tree of life across Africa and Madagascar, they hold water in their hollowed trunks, thousands of gallons stored silently against drought. Their bark resists fire. Their fruit carries more vitamin C than oranges. Their shade shelters. Their hollows have served as homes, chapels, markets, even tombs. Botanists have found baobabs over 2,500 years old, using carbon dating of inner trunk tissues that no longer contribute to growth, but still remain as living memory. Instead of rings, baobabs layer themselves in time, like a slow spiral of survival. A single baobab might host bats, bees, birds, fungi, and people. And when they fall after centuries, they often do so without warning, as if time itself simply sighed. Their intelligence is ecological, archival, not in neurons, but in the shape of their patience. They widen with the rains, contract with the dry, and still, without speaking, they become gathering places. They draw us near, remind us that wisdom may be slow, but it is vast, and it does not forget. Pulse 43, Arctic Terns. Each year, Arctic terns chase summer, from the top of the world to the bottom and back again, more than 40,000 miles flown each year. Not once, but every season of their long lives. They live more daylight than any other creature. Following the sun across the curvature of the earth, they glide over oceans, ice shelves, desert skies, and they do not get lost. They use a built-in magnetoreception system, sensitive to Earth's magnetic field, to navigate vast distances, likely encoded in specialized proteins in their eyes and brains. Recent studies with geolocators have confirmed their staggering migration patterns, astonishing even the scientists who studied them. They return to the same mates, the same rocky breeding grounds, year after year, tracing invisible paths etched by generations before. Their wings are slim, Their calls sharp, but their minds cartographic, celestial. They navigate not by power, but precision. They remind us that memory doesn't always live in the brain. It can live in feathers, in instinct, in the curved echo of sunlight on wing. Pulse 44, Fiddler Crabs. At the edge of land and sea, where tides stretch and withdraw like breath, fiddler crabs dig their homes. Small palm-sized creatures, with one claw outsized, waved like a semaphore in the dusk. It's a signal. To rivals, back off. To mates, come closer. Each crab times its movements to the moon. They know when to emerge, when to retreat. Their internal clocks are circadial, synchronized with lunar rhythms, enabling them to anticipate high and low tide, even in constant laboratory darkness. They carve spirals into the sand, burrows that stay dry when the ocean returns. And when the heat climbs too high, they vanish underground, tucking themselves into the cool dark. Even their vision is split, one eye on the horizon, one on the sand. They read the world in shimmer. Their brains, small as they are, process polarized light, wavelengths and directions humans cannot see. And if they lose that massive claw, they grow it back, but always on the same side, as if even regrowth must remember. Fiddler crabs don't dominate their world. They dance with it, move when the sea allows, signal what needs saying, and endure by knowing exactly when to hide and when to rise. Pulse 45, Lightning. Lightning is not random, it's searching. Each bolt begins as a whisper, an invisible thread reaching down from the clouds, branching, hesitating, looking. The earth, in turn, sends up a counter-thread. And where the two meet, the sky lights up. In that instant, 100 million volts pass through air. Air becomes plasma. Sound becomes thunder. But long before the flash, there is tension. Build up, static yearning to be resolved. Lightning seeks the path of least resistance, but it also creates the path as it moves. It forges it, burns it into existence. We now know lightning can be triggered by cosmic rays, particles from deep space altering electrical fields in our atmosphere. And its patterns follow fractal mathematics, branching like trees, rivers, or neural networks. Each strike is brief, but leaves a signature. Ozone, heat, memory. Some bolts travel farther than city blocks. Some strike the same place again and again. Lightning is not mindless. It is selective, patterned, charged with information. Its intelligence lives in balance correction, in knowing when pressure must be released, in drawing a line, however briefly, between above and below. And in doing so, it reminds us, power doesn't always accumulate. Sometimes it must discharge, suddenly, exactly where it's needed, like a decision long considered, finally made. Pulse 46, the immune system. Inside your body, a vast intelligence hums, not in your brain, but in your blood, your lymph, your bones. The immune system is pattern recognition incarnate. It learns, it remembers, it distinguishes self from other, without judgment, only discernment. T cells patrol like sentries. B cells craft antibodies, tiny targeted maps of what to neutralize. Macrophages clean up debris, swallowing what's broken or foreign. And when something new arrives, the system doesn't panic. It adapts, it makes notes, it builds a quieter, faster response next time. Some researchers call this liquid learning, because the knowledge is not stored in one way or place. It flows, distributed, responsive, alive. We often think intelligence must be conscious, but the immune system reminds us you can be wise without knowing it. And sometimes the sharpest mind is the one that simply knows what doesn't belong and makes space for healing anyway. Pulse 47. Arctic foxes. In the high north, the Arctic fox survives where few others can. Blizzards, darkness, nothing but snow. Its fur changes with the seasons, brown in summer, white in winter. Its paws are furred, its ears are small. Every adaptation preserves heat. But its greatest intelligence, hearing. It listens beneath the snow for the faintest movement of a vole tunnelling below. Then it leaps, straight up, arcs through the air, and dives headfirst into the drift. Scientists believe they use Earth's magnetic field as a kind of targeting system, a living compass. They catch prey more often when facing northeast. No tools, just instinct, refined through generations. The Arctic fox teaches us that even in scarcity, even in silence, there's always a way to listen deeper, to find what's hidden, and leap when the moment is right. Pulse 48. Kelp forests. Underwater forests sway in slow motion. Giant kelp can grow more than 0.5 meters a day, reaching upwards from the seafloor like submerged trees. They form dense canopies that shelter sea otters, fish, crustaceans, and seals. They absorb carbon, diffuse storm energy, create nurseries. Unlike coral reefs, kelp is not built on stone. It moves, it flexes, it yields. But in doing so, it reshapes the ocean's edge. Entire coastlines thrive because of kelp. And when sea otters vanished, urchins multiplied, devouring the forests. Only when the otters returned did the balance restore. The intelligence of kelp is not in one frond, it's in the whole system. A web of dependencies soft as algae, strong as tide. It reminds us you don't have to stand tall to make a difference. Sometimes you just have to hold the others close and keep growing toward the light. Pulse 49. Dung beetles. The dung beetle is not glamorous, but it is astonishing. Some species can roll balls more than 1,000 times their own weight, making them one of the strongest creatures on Earth, relative to size. They use these spheres for food, for breeding chambers, for storing nutrients. And how do they navigate? They follow the Milky Way. It was once thought only birds and humans used the stars. But dung beetles roll their balls in straight lines by tracking celestial light, orienting to the galaxy itself. They're cleaners, recyclers, cosmic navigators in miniature armor. They remind us that intelligence is not always lofty. Sometimes it rolls through the dust, steady, certain, pointed toward the stars. Pulse 50. River deltas. Where rivers meet the sea, something exquisite happens. Sediment slows, fans out, and builds new land. These are deltas, braided webs of water, soil, and life. From the Nile to the Mekong, deltas feed millions. They're rich in nutrients, dense with biodiversity, and in constant change. No single channel dominates. The water splits and splits again, following the path of least resistance. That too is intelligence, flow finding, self-distribution, resilience through multiplicity. When one path clogs, the others carry on. Deltas teach us that centralization is not the only way to grow. Sometimes what's needed is diffusion, soft fractal branching, abundance made not by control, but by trust in divergence. Let the water find its own way. Let the land emerge where it may. Let the pattern hold. Pulse 51. Spider silk. They spin in silence, mid-air engineers stringing tension into form. Spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel, and yet lighter than cotton thread. Each strand is custom, some sticky, some dry, some for strength, some for signal. Orb-weaving spiders rebuild their webs every night. Not just repair, reinvention. They eat the old web at dusk, recycling the proteins, and spin a new one by moonrise. A daily ritual of letting go, of starting fresh. The design of each web depends on species, but also on the needs and context of each moment. Hunger, humidity, and wind. A spider does not just build, it listens, then weaves what's needed, exactly where it is. Some strands vibrate differently, depending on what's caught. Mosquito, leaf, maybe even spiderkin, and some spiders can pluck those vibrations like a harp. A message decoded through the fingertips of legs. To walk your own trapline, to sleep in the centre of something both deadly and beautiful, to trust that your next home is already inside you. That is a kind of genius too. Pulse 52, narwhals. In the deep Arctic fjords, under thick blue ice, narwhals slip through still water. Their name means corpse whale, from the way they float when still. But they are very much alive. Each male bears a single spiral tusk, a tooth that erupts through the lip and grows up to 3 meters long. For centuries it was mistaken for unicorn horn. And in a way, it is. But this isn't just show. That tusk is packed with nerve endings. It can sense temperature, pressure, salinity. It is a wand of perception. Narwhals dive deeper than almost any mammal, up to 1,800 meters. Holding their breath for nearly 25 minutes. They hunt in darkness using echolocation clicks, and they return, always, to the same ice cracks they remember year after year. They travel in quiet pods, mothers and calves, old bulls, and sometimes 2 males spiral their tusks together, not fighting, but feeling. Scientists call it tusking. A tactile intelligence, contact as calibration. To live in the dark, to find your way by echo, to measure the ocean with your face, is to remember that magic and science have always been the same thing underwater. Pulse 53, birch trees. In northern forests, birch trees gleam pale against the green, silver bones of the woodland body, but they do more than stand still. Each birch is linked underground by mycorrhizal fungi, trading sugar for minerals, sending signals between roots. In a grove they function like neurons, an interwoven system of alerts, drought, disease, browsing elk, and they remember. Stressed trees prime their neighbours to respond faster next time. Some call it tree immunity. Birches adjust leaf chemistry in real time. More bitter if grazed, and when cut or burned, they sprout again from the base. Regrowth as refusal. Their paper bark peels and curls. Delicate, yes, but fire-resistant, wound-proof, and ancient northern cultures used it for writing. Message trees. To be soft-skinned but alert, rooted yet relational. To know that forest is not many trees but one ongoing conversation. That is intelligence, leaf by leaf. Pulse 54, comb jellies. They look like jellyfish, but they're not. Comb jellies are older, perhaps the first animals to ever think with nerves. They shimmer in rainbows, not from pigment, but from diffraction. 8 rows of tiny hair-like cilia beat in perfect waves, propelling them silently through open water. Light scatters like soap bubbles. Their movement writes colour. Unlike most creatures, they have 2 nerve nets, one for each end, and their neurons are built of molecules never found in other animals. An alien design from the same Earth. They hunt by lassoing prey with sticky cells on their tentacles, not stinging but holding. Stillness as trap. And when cut, many can regenerate lost parts. Some can clone themselves. Their symmetry is radial. Like sunbursts, like memory returning from all directions at once, we often think complexity comes from brains. But the comb jelly teaches otherwise. Intelligence can be distributed, ancient, unfamiliar, and still breathtaking. Pulse 55. Sand dunes. They move, though you wouldn't think it. Each grain of sand a memory, blown from somewhere else. Dunes walk slowly, meters per year, shaped by wind, time, vegetation, gravity. They sing when disturbed. Low moans, high whispers. The physics of friction turning into voice. Some dunes are Barcan-shaped, crescent moons, horns forward. Some are star dunes with ridges like compass points. Their form changes based on prevailing winds. And though they seem barren, dunes host complex micro-ecosystems. Beetles root-binding plants, insects that follow heat signatures in the sand. In Namibia, one spider cartwheels downhill to escape predators, a gymnast of survival. Sand holds more than heat. It stores stories, pollen, glass, bone, to be a body that shifts slowly, to become both shelter and obstacle, to teach that time can be shaped by pressure and drift, is to remember that even the desert listens and learns, shaping the world in turn. Pulse 56. Moon milk. In limestone caves deep underground, there's a substance called moon milk. Soft, white, damp. It coats walls like breath made visible. For centuries, people thought it was magic, healing, sacred, and in a way, they weren't wrong. Moon milk is alive. It's made by bacteria slowly dissolving rock, precipitating minerals that weave into soft calcium deposits. The process is so slow, centuries per inch, but always becoming. These microbes survive in darkness, living off the minerals in stone and the moisture in air. They're extramorphals, thriving where most life would falter. Their biofilm changes the chemistry of the cave, turning stillness into slow creation. Even in silence, they sculpt. They make something soft from something solid. And in old cathedrals or sacred shrines, traces of moon milk have been found, as if holiness and biology always shared a wall. To live in the dark, to eat rock, to exhale softness into stone. That too is intelligence, just slow enough to be mistaken for miracle. Pulse 57. Forest gaps. When a great tree falls, it leaves a hole in the canopy. A shaft of light cuts through, birds arrive, shoots reach upward, and slowly the gap becomes a cradle. These are not accidents. Gaps are part of the forest's renewal logic. Openings in the canopy let sunlight reach the floor, triggering dormant seeds, activating growth spurts, shifting species dynamics. In tropical forests, these pulses of regeneration form mosaics across the land. Some species depend on them. Light-hungry pioneers, like Cecropia, germinate only when the shadow lifts. Others, like jaguars or hornbills, follow the abundance that surges in a gap. The death of one elder becomes an invitation. In Biała Wieża or the Amazon, researchers map gap cycles as memory, natural succession as ecosystem resilience. It's a form of collective patience, not resisting loss but metabolizing it, turning absence into opportunity, to fall at the right time, to leave room for something else. That too is a kind of wisdom. Pulse 58. Snow. We forget that snow is not just weather, it's a strategy. Each flake begins as a speck, dust or pollen, around which ice crystals grow, branching into six-fold fractals, no two the same. Structure from stillness. Snow insulates, it muffles sound, it protects roots and seeds beneath a still blanket of cold. Some animals, like voles, live all winter in the subnivean layer, the space between snow and ground, an invisible world, warm, dark, alive. Tracks vanish, voices quiet, survival softens. Snow is also filter and archive. It scrubs impurities from the air as it falls, locking away particles of soot, salt, and pollen. In its layers, scientists read the history of fire, ash, radiation, and volcanoes. It forms a climate archive, one snowfall at a time. And it shapes light. Snow's albedo reflects up to 90% of sunlight, regulating planetary temperature in ways both delicate and global. To fall lightly, to bury without erasing, to protect what sleeps, to remember what melted. Snow teaches us that gentleness is not weakness, it is cover, it is memory in slow descent. Pulse 59. Sea otters. They drift on their backs, paws tucked, kelp wrapped, tool-using, play-loving, fiercely maternal. Sea otters are ecosystem engineers disguised as plush toys. Each otter carries a favourite rock in a pouch under its arm, used to crack open urchins, mussels, clams. Tool selection passed from mother to pup. Some researchers have tracked otter handedness preferences. The same paw always chosen for precision. They keep kelp forests alive by eating urchins that would otherwise devour the roots. Without otters, the kelp vanishes. Without kelp, the coastline erodes. They sleep in rafts, groups floating together, sometimes holding paws. It's not just affection, it's anchoring, a social net that prevents them from drifting apart. Sometimes, dozens will link up, a bobbing constellation of soft, watchful minds. Their fur is the densest of any animal, over 1 million hairs per square inch. No blubber, just insulation. They blow air into their coats to stay buoyant and dry, and yet they nearly vanished, hunted for that very softness. Now return to some coasts as they're changing ecosystems back, one bite at a time, to be a keystone, to balance a world while playing in it, to survive by softness and still reshape the shore. That is otter wisdom. Pulse 60. Smoke. Smoke is not alive, and yet it carries the intelligence of what it burns to its environment. It curls, it clings, it climbs. It carries chemical signatures across oceans, leaving traces in tree rings, glaciers, lungs. Birds read it, bees respond, frogs go silent when smoke arrives, and others notice their voices quiet. Some seeds require smoke to sprout and grow. In fire-adapted landscapes, germination begins only after smoke signals change the hormonal chemistry of a seed coat. A spark is not enough. The smell of fire must come first. Smoke speaks to the sky. High enough, it becomes pyrocumulus, fire clouds that generate lightning. A cycle renewed. We tend to think in binaries, burn or regrow, but smoke teaches transition. A third state, not flame, not ash, but signal. Memory made air. To speak after burning, to leave pattern, not just destruction. To teach without body. That too is intelligence, even if it clouds, wisps, then vanishes. Pulse 61. Dandelions. In damaged soil, beside concrete, in drought-hardened fields, dandelions bloom. Uninvited, unapologetic, brilliant yellow. They're not invaders, they're healers. Their deep taproots crack compacted ground. They pull calcium, iron, magnesium up from below, rebuilding what's been leached away. They are bioindicators, appearing not from aggression, but from need. One plant can produce thousands of seeds, each with its own parachute. They don't release randomly. They wait for wind, sensing humidity and pressure, optimizing their chances. Even their leaves are diagnostic. Tasting of bitterness, yes, but offering vitamins A, C, and K. Medicine in disguise in times where soil integrity suggests nutrition is scarce. Dandelions speak a quiet, radical intelligence, of abundance in neglect, of resilience shaped by pattern, of generosity that doesn't require praise. They don't ask for cultivation, they just arrive as if they know we're not done yet, as if they trust we'll remember that what the world casts out might be what the world needs most. Pulse 62. Starling murmurations. At dusk the sky becomes a breath. Waves of starlings, hundreds, thousands, sweep and swell like music made visible. A murmuration. Each bird tracks only its 7 nearest neighbours. No leader, no map. Just constant adjustment, velocity, spacing, intention. Scientists call this scale-free correlation. It means no matter the size of the flock, the movement holds. Decentralized elegance, no crash, no chaos. Why do they do it? Predator evasion, warmth, communication, all of these, but maybe also joy. You can feel it watching, that this isn't just utility, it's presence in motion. They form from scattered arrivals, mid-air, sometimes miles from their roost, then vanish all at once, like a memory, surfacing, fading and shifting in real time. What emerges is not choreography, it's responsiveness. What leads is not command, it's relation. A murmuration teaches that intelligence can be distributed, that beauty can be an emergent property, and that no one needs to see the whole picture for the pattern to hold. Pulse 63. Pufferfish. In the shallows off Amami Oshima Island in Japan, a single male pufferfish builds something astonishing. A geometric circle over 6 feet wide, etched into the seafloor with his fins. Not random lines, but perfect radial symmetry. Ridges, grooves and valleys. He works tirelessly for days, adjusting sand grain by grain, embedding shells at the edges like decoration. Why? Well, for the same reason many of us humans put our energy into beauty, to attract a mate. Scientists only discovered this behaviour in 1995. Before that, divers thought the circles were made by currents, not by art. Each male's design is slightly different, but the symmetry holds. And if the circle is good enough, a female lays her eggs at the centre. Then the currents, channeled by the ridges, keep the eggs oxygenated and safe. This is not instinct as repetition. It's instinct as architecture. The pufferfish does not think like us, but he builds. And in the sand, beauty becomes a strategy, and pattern becomes a promise. Pulse 64. Fog harvesting ecosystems. In the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, life drinks the sky. Fog drifting in from the Pacific carries moisture that never touches the ground. But some landscapes know how to catch it. Spindly plants with waxy filaments, spiders and beetles with backs like nets, even engineered mesh mimicking nature, fog catchers strung across ridge lines. The Namib beetle turns its back to the wind. Its shell condenses water vapour into droplets. They roll down channels straight to its mouth. In Chile, mosses and lichens carpet fog-fed slopes, absorbing water directly through their tissues. No roots, no rivers, just vapor and patience. Researchers have begun to mimic this. Coastal nets that harvest drinking water from thin air. Villages watered by wind alone. What kind of intelligence senses not only presence but potential? That understands a misty drift as nourishment? Fog is elusive, but these ecosystems say, catch what's passing, soften your form, let water find you. They remind us it's possible to thrive on what others overlook, to drink the invisible and grow not in spite of scarcity, but because of it. Pulse 65. Velvet worms. Velvet worms look like something dreamed. Tiny, slow-moving creatures with velvety skin and dozens of stubby legs. They've crawled through leaf litter for over 500 million years. But don't mistake softness for simplicity. They hunt with a weapon so strange it borders on myth. When they detect prey, a cricket, a termite, they shoot twin streams of slime. Fast, precise, sticky. The glue hardens in seconds, trapping the target in place. Then they approach, unhurried. Mouthparts click open. The feast begins. Their slime is a wonder of evolutionary chemistry. A protein-based adhesive that solidifies when stretched. Scientists study it to design non-toxic glues and medical sealants. They communicate too, with pheromones, antenna flicks, social rituals. Some live in small colonies. A rare few even share food. Their intelligence isn't about speed or size, it's about precision, timing, an ancient, coiled potential. In the dark soil, the velvet worm says, don't rush, hold your power, strike when ready, and leave no trace. Pulse 66. Deep sea anglerfish. Far beneath the surface, beyond sunlight, beyond sound. The anglerfish drifts. She carries her lure above her head. A fleshy filament tipped with bioluminescent bacteria. It pulses in the dark. A false worm, a flickering invitation. In a realm where light is currency, this lure is priceless. The anglerfish doesn't chase it, she waits. The moment a curious shape swims near, her jaws unhinge. She swallows prey half her size in a single gulp. And her intelligence? It's stranger still. Males tiny in comparison are born to find her. They do not feed, they do not hunt. They search. When one finds a female, he bites her skin. And fuses, bloodstreams join, organs dissolve. He becomes an appendage, a living sperm bank always ready. Some carry 5, others 8. Scientists call this parasitic, but it's also partnership. Adaptation for a realm of silence. Anglerfish remind us, even in darkness you can become the light. Even in scarcity, you can invent new ways to connect. And sometimes what looks monstrous is simply perfectly designed for the world it lives in. Pulse 67. Elephant graveyards. The myth goes like this. Old elephants, sensing death, leave the herd. They travel alone to secret groves. There, among the bones of ancestors, they lie down and die. The truth is subtler, but just as profound. Elephants do seek the remains of their kind. They touch skulls with their trunks. They linger around old bones, grieve, mourn. Calves nudge the tusks of the dead. Matriarchs return, years later, to places where family once fell. This is not just memory, it's ritual. Neuroscience tells us elephants have spindle neurons, rare brain cells linked to empathy, planning, awareness. So far, only humans, great apes, whales, and elephants have them. Their intelligence is emotional, spatial, ancestral. They know migration routes carved by centuries. They remember droughts, conflicts, safe paths, and the memory-soaked graveyards that elephants build for their kin. Remind us that to be intelligent is not only to build, it is to remember, to feel, and to return and honour those that walked before us. Pulse 68. Cassowaries. In the dense rainforests of Papua New Guinea and northern Australia, there lives a creature that looks like a dinosaur, because it nearly is. Cassowaries are tall, powerful birds with black feathers, like coarse hair, and a vivid blue neck crowned by a horned casque. They don't fly, they crash through undergrowth, fast and silent. They can jump 5 feet straight up, and with dagger-like claws they defend themselves fiercely. But their greatest intelligence is ecological. Cassowaries are keystone dispersers. They eat rainforest fruits whole, some the size of tennis balls. Their stomachs don't digest the seeds. Instead, they travel miles, and when the cassowary defecates, it plants the forest. Over 70 species of trees rely on them. Without cassowaries, some rainforests wouldn't regenerate. Their mind is a gut. Their journey is a map. Their legacy is green. Not all intelligence is cognitive. Sometimes it's embodied, relational, a dance between digestion and biodiversity. Cassowaries teach us you don't have to explain your role. You just have to move through the world in ways that help it grow. Pulse 69. Wombats. Wombats are often dismissed as simple creatures, chunky, slow, terrestrial, but they carve entire systems beneath the earth. With claws and bone-plated rears, they dig burrows stretching over 100 feet, complete with side chambers and temperature regulation. Cool in summer, warm in winter. During bushfires, their burrows shelter not just wombats, but wallabies, reptiles, even birds. Unintentionally, or perhaps intuitively, they become sanctuaries. Their intelligence is infrastructural, low to the ground, hidden, and they are the only animals known to produce cube-shaped feces. Dry, compact, and deliberately placed, these cubes don't roll. They mark territory with precision. Scientists say these cubes teach us about the elasticity of the intestinal walls, but maybe it's also about geometry and gastrointelligence as art, even as beauty. Wombats teach us you don't need to be loud to shape the landscape. Sometimes intelligence is carved over time, in the dark, with steady pause. Sometimes merely existing and making time for a good meal is just enough. Pulse 70. Vernal pools. In the quiet of late winter, when the snow melts and the earth begins to stir, vernal pools appear. They are temporary wetlands, formed in depressions that hold water just long enough to change everything. Fish can't live here, it's too brief, but that absence makes space for others. Spadefoot toads, fairy shrimp, salamanders, species that depend on these fleeting ecosystems to breed, feed, and survive. No permanent water source, no guarantee of return, and yet every year they reappear. The soil remembers, the seeds wait, the creatures return. Scientists have found that fairy shrimp eggs can lie dormant for years, even decades, waiting for the right conditions. This is intelligence without movement. It is temporal, responsive, seasonal. Vernal pools teach us not all ecosystems need permanence to matter. Some exist precisely because they are impermanent. A reminder that sometimes what's most important doesn't last long, but arrives right on time. Pulse 71. Glowing earthworms. In the rainforests of Southeast Asia and parts of Australia, there are earthworms that shine. Their glow is greenish-blue, faint, steady, bioluminescent. Scientists believe it serves as a deterrent to predators, an eerie warning in the soil. But we don't fully understand it. These worms stretch over 3 feet long. Their tunnels aerate soil, cycle nutrients, and create microhabitats for fungi, roots, and insects, invisible engineers of the forest floor. And when the dark comes, they light up. Luciferin and luciferase, chemical elegance, the same basic compounds as fireflies, but buried instead of airborne. This is not the glow of spectacle, it is subterranean, a quiet beacon beneath the moss and mulch. Glowing earthworms remind us, not all illumination is meant to be seen. Some light belongs underground, a signal for the soil, a secret between roots. Pulse 72. Star-nosed mole. The star-nosed mole lives underground, nearly blind. But where its eyes fail, its nose becomes extraordinary. At the tip of its snout is a ring of 22 fleshy tentacles, each packed with over 25,000 sensory receptors. Together, they create one of the most sensitive touch organs in the animal kingdom. It can identify and consume prey in under 200 milliseconds, faster than conscious thought. Each tendril is constantly moving, scanning, sensing, reading the world through contact alone. Its brain is shaped around this star, with an enormous portion devoted to processing touch. This is somatic intelligence, not learned, not verbal, but real. The star-nosed mole doesn't see. It maps the world by skin, a kind of braille carved directly into the earth. It reminds us, intelligence isn't just thinking, it's reaching, feeling, knowing by contact. Pulse 73. Rock pools. When the ocean retreats, it doesn't disappear. It leaves behind mirrors, rock pools, tiny ecosystems trapped between stone and sky. Each holds a different story. Sea anemones pulsing, urchins still, crabs darting beneath kelp. The creatures here must adapt to change. Salinity shifts, temperature rises, oxygen thins. It is a world of flux, and yet within each pool life organizes. Hermit crabs select new shells, barnacles close tight to conserve moisture. Algae adjust their orientation to the sun. This is micro-adaptation. Tide to tide, hour to hour. Scientists call them ecological laboratories, perfect for observing evolution in miniature. But they are not experiments, they're resilience made visible. Rock pools teach us intelligence doesn't always scale up. Sometimes it's local, tiny, tide-bounded, and still, it holds the whole ocean in miniature. Complex intelligence, pooled. Pulse 74. Gobies and shrimp. On the seafloor, where soft sediment swirls and vision dims, an unlikely partnership thrives. A nearly blind pistol shrimp, tiny claws armed with sonic snap, excavates a burrow. Home, refuge, safe zone. But its eyes are weak, so a goby fish moves in. Perched at the entrance, the goby watches the world. If danger nears, it flicks its tail, and the shrimp retreats. In return, the goby shares the tunnel, a shared shelter for 2 species. One digs, one sees. It's called mutualism, coevolution, where both species benefit so intricately, they've become essential to each other's survival. Scientists have observed over 100 species of goby shrimp pairs across oceans. They do not just tolerate each other, they trust. Their antennae remain in contact constantly, a line between awareness and safety. This is intelligence braided. No hierarchy, just reciprocity. The goby and the shrimp remind us, sometimes wisdom lies in interdependence. What one lacks, the other brings. And together, they make a life neither could build alone. Pulse 75. Archerfish. In the mangroves and estuaries of Southeast Asia and Australia, a sleek silver fish looks up from below. The archerfish. It has evolved a remarkable skill, shooting jets of water from its mouth to knock insects from branches overhead. This isn't random spray, it's precision. The archerfish accounts for distance, refraction, target size, and water pressure. It adjusts its aim to compensate for the way light bends at the water's surface. In other words, it calculates. Some can hit a target over 6 feet away. Bullseye every time. Young archerfish practice, they miss, then recalibrate, and they learn by watching older fish. This is tool use without tools, projectile knowledge, an aquatic archer schooling in physics. The archerfish teaches us intelligence can look like stillness, then strike with uncanny precision. That mastery is sometimes hidden until the moment it isn't. Pulse 76. Monarch butterflies. Each year, monarch butterflies make one of the most astonishing migrations on Earth. From Canada to central Mexico, up to 3,000 miles, across multiple generations. No single butterfly makes the round trip. It takes 4. The great-grandchildren of the departing monarchs return to the exact trees their ancestors left behind. How do they do it, across generations and vast spaces? Scientists believe they navigate using a combination of environmental cues, the angle of the sun, magnetic fields, and inherited internal maps. Their wings laced with sensors, their genes loaded with memory. They rest in oyamel fir forests, millions of orange wings folded, clinging to branches like autumn come alive. They don't live long, but they live long enough. This is intelligence passed down, not in teaching, but in the body itself. They remind us the journey doesn't have to be completed by one alone. You can begin what others will finish. You can carry wisdom forward, wing to wing, generation to generation. Pulse 77. Nest sharing in meerkats. In the deserts of southern Africa, meerkats form tight-knit communities, clans of 20 or more. They share duties. Some stand guard, sentries on hind legs, scanning for hawks and jackals. Others forage or care for pups not their own. They rotate tasks, even take turns warming cold pups with their bodies. Their communication is complex, dozens of vocalizations for different threats, aerial, ground, ambiguous. But more than defense or foraging, meerkats excel at something quieter: cohabitation. They live in intricate tunnel systems, multi-chambered burrows that offer coolness in heat, safety in storms, and they share them. Even unrelated meerkats join the group. This isn't just kinship, it's social intelligence. Scientists call them cooperative breeders, where the group raises young together, with older siblings, cousins, and even outsiders helping. Meerkats teach us you don't need to go it alone. You can build a system where care is distributed, where safety comes from many eyes, many hearts, and no one has to stand guard forever. Pulse 78. Brackish estuaries. Where rivers meet the sea, something magical happens. Fresh water mixes with salt, clashing, blending, creating a zone of complexity, the estuary. It is neither river nor ocean. It is both. And in that in-between, life flourishes. Crabs, mollusks, juvenile fish, all feed and grow here. The grasses filter toxins, the mud traps nutrients, birds descend in migration. The salinity shifts with the tide, the water rises and falls, and yet stability emerges. Estuaries are among the most productive ecosystems on the planet. They protect coastlines from storm surge, they purify water, and they offer nursery grounds to countless species. Scientists call them transition zones. But maybe they are more than that. Maybe they are teachers of edge logic, of thresholds that do not divide, but mix. Brackish estuaries remind us, you don't have to choose one world or the other. You can hold contradiction, you can be both things at once, and in doing so, become a cradle for life. Pulse 79, Pando. In a quiet grove in Utah lives a forest that is also a single being. It's called Pando, Latin for I spread. To the eye it looks like 47,000 aspen trees, but underground they're all connected. Each slender trunk is a sprout from a single, ancient root system, one of the largest and oldest organisms on Earth. Some estimate Pando's root network has been growing for over 10,000 years, possibly much longer. When a tree dies, new shoots emerge. When fire comes, it resprouts from below. Pando's intelligence isn't in a brain or a signal. It's in distributed resilience. It grows by listening to where light is needed. It survives by sending life toward that light. Science calls it a clonal colony, but it also feels like kinship. Each tree unique, and yet all one. Pando teaches us, you can appear separate and still be the same body. You can be vast and ancient by choosing to continue, and you can hold 1,000 storms by rooting deeper than time. Pulse 80. Icefish. Beneath Antarctic ice, where water nears freezing and darkness never lifts, lives a fish with clear blood. The icefish. It survives where others would freeze solid, thanks to a molecular trick. Its liver produces antifreeze proteins that bind to ice crystals and stop them from growing. The blood contains no hemoglobin, hence the transparency, because oxygen dissolves better in cold water. The icefish moves slowly, conserving energy, adapted to a world of near stasis. And yet, its biology hums with precision. Special enzymes, unusual heart structure, a slow metabolism tuned to endurance. This is survival not by force but finesse. To live in freezing blackness, the body becomes porous to its context. The icefish teaches us, you don't need heat to thrive, you just need to change what flows through you. Pulse 81, mycorrhizal. Walk through a forest and you may not see it happening, but underfoot, ants are planting a garden. Mycorrhizal, seed dispersal by ants. Some plants, like violets and bloodroot, produce seeds with small fatty attachments called elaiosomes. Ants find them irresistible. They carry the seeds back to their nests, eat the elaiosomes, and discard the seeds in nutrient-rich tunnels. It's a quiet pact. The plant gets a better chance at germination. The ant gets a meal. This mutualism spans continents. Over 11,000 plant species participate. Some forests are shaped entirely by these invisible migrations. No fanfare, no birdsong. Instead, just small legs carrying futures. Ants teach us you don't have to know the whole system to serve it. Sometimes, by following what draws you, you end up helping things grow. Pulse 82, Mimosa pudica. Touch a mimosa leaf, and it folds inward, quickly, delicately, like it's hiding. This is thigmonesty, a rapid plant movement in response to touch. Electrical signals move through its tissues, triggering cells to lose water pressure, collapsing the leaflets. Within seconds, it reopens. Scientists believe this helps deter herbivores or shake off pests, but it's not reflex alone. Studies show mimosa can habituate. If touched repeatedly with no harm, it stops folding. It learns. With no brain, no nerves, no eyes, it remembers what matters and lets go of what doesn't. The shy plant reminds us, not all memory requires neurons. Sometimes responsiveness lives in the very shape of things, and learning is simply the art of knowing when to close and when to open again. Pulse 83. Baboon. In the savannas and rocky cliffs of Africa, baboons live in complex troops, up to 150 individuals, each with their own alliances, hierarchies and tensions. Dominance matters, but so does friendship. Low-ranking males who groom others, especially infants, often gain favour. Baboons remember past interactions, hold grudges, forgive. They've been seen reconciling after conflict, lip-smacking, touching foreheads, repairing bonds. Females often form lifelong friendships, raising young together, defending one another. In some troops, coalition building reshapes power more than aggression ever could. Scientists study baboons not just for their behaviour, but for their social intelligence. What they reveal is clear. Intelligence isn't just logic or memory, it's navigation, relational nuance, strategic care, knowing when to yield and when to assert. Baboons teach us your survival might depend on how well you read a face and how gently you place your own into the trust of others. Pulse 84. Zebra finches. Tiny and bright-cheeked zebra finches are more than charming. They are prodigies of song. Young males learn to sing by mimicking their fathers. But it's not just copying, it's practice, repetition, and refinement. Their brains develop song-specific circuits that wire themselves through trial and error, much like human infants babbling. Even sleep plays a role. At night, zebra finches replay their songs in their dreams, solidifying memory through echo. And when they are sleep-deprived, their songs falter, precision slips, notes blur. Their intelligence lives in sound, cultural, adaptive, embodied. They change their pitch and rhythm depending on who they sing to. Some develop local dialects, some invent new riffs entirely. Song becomes more than courtship, it's identity. Zebra finches remind us, language is not just words, it is breath and rhythm and inheritance. And that to become yourself, sometimes you must repeat what you've heard until it becomes something entirely your own. Pulse 85. Tectonic plates. We think of the earth as still, but beneath us the crust drifts, massive plates of stone floating on molten mantle, colliding, splitting, sliding past one another in a slow planetary dance. This is tectonics, where plates meet, pressure builds, volcanoes rise, mountains form, oceans shift. It happens slowly, just a few centimetres per year. But over time, continents change shape, entire ecosystems move, and climates transform. The Himalayas were once ocean floor. The Atlantic once didn't exist. Subduction zones pull old crust downward to be remade. Ridges birth new crust upward from the mantle. It's a cycle, a breath, creation by collision. And though it's not consciousness, it is rhythm. Memory in matter. Tectonic intelligence is this: change that moves at the speed of patience, destruction as prelude to renewal. The truth that what seems solid never really is, and that pressure, given time, remakes the world. Pulse 86. Barnacles. Barnacles begin as drifters, microscopic, soft-bodied, free-swimming. But they're searching for a home. Each larva tests surfaces with astonishing sensitivity, seeking a perfect site. When one is found, perhaps a whale's skin or a tide-washed rock, they anchor permanently. They secrete an underwater adhesive, stronger than any man-made glue. It cures in water, binds to irregular surfaces, and resists immense force. Bioengineers study it to design surgical adhesives. Barnacles use the adhesive to build outer shells of calcium, feathery appendages to catch plankton. Though sessile, they are alert, responding to tides, predators, and touch. Barnacle intelligence lies in commitment. They know when to float and when to stay, when to scatter and when to build. From drifting larvae to armoured filters, they embody an ancient truth. You don't need to move to grow. You just need to root where your needs can be met, and become a shape that thrives when the tides return. Pulse 87. Tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds seem like symbols of emptiness, ghost plants blowing through barren land. But that's a narrow view of something more beautiful. They are a marvel of motion. When mature, their stem base snaps. The wind carries them across fields and highways. Each bounce scatters seeds, tens of thousands, across miles. Not randomly, but in optimized dispersal, shaped by the weed's structure, size, and spin. They're designed to roll. Tumbleweeds thrive in places others abandon: burned fields, construction sites, dry plains. Their seeds lie dormant until rain falls. Then they burst back. They represent a kind of mobile intelligence, decentralized, adaptive, efficient. They are neither rootless nor lost. They are deliberate, engineered by wind. Tumbleweeds remind us, even collapse can be strategic. You can spread your gifts without staying in one place. Surrendering to movement doesn't mean losing your way. Sometimes the wisest thing to do is let go and roll. Pulse 88. Lake ice. In the stillest winters, some lakes begin to sing. As temperatures fall, sheets of ice expand, crack, and shift, sending vibrations across the frozen surface. The sound is otherworldly. Eerie pings, drawn-out moans, ricocheting tones that bounce like sonar. It's not conscious, but it's precise. The sounds emerge from pressure waves, trapped between layers of ice and water. Different thicknesses, tensions, and temperatures create distinct resonances. Scientists have measured these acoustic events. The high-pitched chirps travel for kilometers. The lowest ones, felt more than heard, mimic whale song. Some say the lakes are speaking, others say it's music made from fracture. But either way, they're expressing something true. That silence holds tension, that pressure makes sound. And that breaking doesn't mean ending, it can also mean release. Singing lake ice teaches us. Resonance doesn't require words. Stillness doesn't mean quiet. And sometimes the coldest things in the world know exactly how to sing. So, did you make it? If you're still here with us, thank you for making it all the way through. We hope you rested, even if you didn't sleep. And we hope you enjoyed it, and maybe even learnt something. We'd love to hear your feedback if you have any, and you can subscribe if you want to hear when our next series is ready for you. Until then, wishing you ease, comfort, and maybe even a little awe from Charlie Page and the Syra Riven Studios team, thank you for being here with us, and may the tide carry you gently until next time.